So let's talk about the next steps. But first, really quickly, anything else from the meeting that stood out? Bill first, then RFM, because it was lengthy. It was. I said it was Mormon Stories level, right? It was 3.5 hours, and we were riveted the entire time. Any other takeaways from the meeting before we go to next steps?
Go, Bill.
One thing I would say is that when we had the picture of the incoming mayor, and I didn't catch his name offhand.
John Hubbard.
John Hubbard.
Yeah.
There's something in there about all of these things will be considered. Council members will heavily consider recommendations made by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which the cynic in me goes, which means that they're not going to consider any of them. That's my fear, is that the fact that you have to state that is prepping everybody for the fact that you're going to give this thing the smooth ride through, and you want everyone to know that you really did take seriously those recommendations.
That's interesting. That's why this meeting is going to be so important. We literally don't know what will happen. That was our takeaway after planning and zoning, is that anything could happen. In fact, I had a bet with RFM, even if they would approve it or not. And I said they will. And then my co-host Landon said with conditions. And the bet was $50 in a cheesecake, if you recall.
Which you made unilaterally.
It's still, I did. I had to.
After I left because of my headache.
You had stepped away, but I think the chat agreed with me. So, anyway, any final thoughts from you on the actual meeting? Then we'll talk about what happens next. Kind of like
I want to say just how I feel when I think of the fact that the first presidency had to issue a letter saying we'll change the name of the temple from McKinley to Fairview. Is that right? Or Fairview to McKinley?
To Fairview. First
from
Prosper,
McKinley to Fairview.
Then McKinney, then Fairview, and who knows what else.
That I mean, this is just so base. Is this really what prophets are for? To issue decrees changing the name of a building? They have nothing better to do. And the other side of it is that only makes it worse, is that it's so obviously done for a political purpose.
Yes.
This is what President Monson, President Oaks, and President Eyring have just done, is they have shown the world that they are engaged in the basest of politics.
Yeah, well, a lot of people wondered, and questions, myself included, does the first presidency even know what's happening? Or are there so many layers of attorneys and representatives? Because the town officials have never talked to any kind of church leader, except for an area rep and then the attorneys that come. So, unless this statement was written for them, maybe they are kind of aware of what's happening.
They know. And you know why they know and why I'm sure they know? Because of you, Rebecca.
Oh, dear.
You are the burr under their saddle, the bee in their bonnet.
There it is. Well, you know what? I just really love the people of Fairview, and I want everybody to be good neighbors and get along. There, I use the church's phrase. So what is the next step here? The next step is going to be the town council meeting Tuesday, April 29th. We'll start our coverage at 5:30. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the interesting thing now is, had the Planning and Zoning Board not passed the application, said, no way, none of this works, we're not even going to try to do conditions, we say no. When it went to the town council, there would have had to be a super majority. 6 out of the 7 people would have had to vote yes to have it continue on. They didn't do that. The Planning and Zoning said, sure, we'll pass it. But you know what? If you do this and this and this and this, like we just outlined, the height, the lighting, and the name change. Also some sewer things connecting to Allen, because there is no sewage capability there now. And I think some
to be determined, wasn't it? They hadn't heard back yet. Determined.
Yeah, this is what happens. You send things back and forth, hint, hint, bell tower, until it's finally hammered out and you have a signed CUP. So 4 votes now are needed to pass the CUP. And if you remember, after mediation back in November, the whole town council, did sign and say, yeah, we would agree to this, which was 120 feet, 30,000 square feet, and then the 35 to 42 foot walls. So interesting, no super majority needed. So that makes the meeting. I have a question
for you, Rebecca.
Yes.
I understand what you mean when you say that if the Planning and Zoning Committee had said no, that the city council would have had to have a super majority to pass it. But they didn't say no. They said yes with these conditions. So I understand that in order to pass it with those conditions, they would need a simple majority at the city council. But what do they need as far as votes if they want to pass the church's plan, but without the conditions imposed.
Again, have you been nosing around in my slides? I swear. So,
Oh, honestly,
still
no, I
only-
hadn't.
It's because we
Okay.
think alike, right? What would be the next logical question? Well,
Right.
what the heck will they do? Or what can they do is the bigger question, right? And so 4 votes is all that's needed. As I understand it, there's no supermajority to do any of these things. Now, this is very interesting. They can pass it as recommended by the planning and zoning. That means all the conditions apply. We pass it. Church, you can build your temple if you meet every single one of those things. 68-foot spire, lights turned off on holidays, Mondays, Sundays, and and between 11 and 5. They could pass it like that, and then it would be up to the church to go, huh? And the church would have to do what they would have to do. They could also pass it, and they can change any or all of the conditions or add new conditions. Isn't that crazy? So they could say, you know what, the spire's fine. We'll keep that condition, but I would like to add something about traffic, or I would like to add something about landscaping. They can take out or put in whatever they would like. This is why I'm saying this meeting is going to be fascinating.
So basically, they can do anything they want, approving with more conditions, with fewer conditions, with alternate conditions, or denying it with or without prejudice, all by a simple majority tomorrow night.
That's right. And this is what I'm being told by people in the know, around the council, if I can say that. This is what I'm being told. The other thing they could do is they could deny it with prejudice. That means, nope, you're not building, and you can't bring back an application for some time. I believe it's like a year. They could also deny it without prejudice, which means, nope, we're not going to find common ground here. We deny it, but you can come back anytime with something else if you want.
That's what happened initially, wasn't it?
That's what happened initially. Yeah. They said, nope, we're not going to do 173 feet, 65-foot walls, 43-foot footprint, but come back tomorrow. And they did come back. If you remember, they said, we'll knock off 15 feet. And they said, we'll change the name. This was at the very beginning. Isn't that interesting? And when the town said no, the LDS Church said in the news, we made major concessions.
And they're going to say it again.
They're going to say it again. So that's another option too, with or without prejudice. And one I didn't realize, they can table the request. Just like, nope, we're done. We're not addressing it. We're just not even going to just out. Everybody go to IHOP. So that could happen too. I mean, I don't think that would ever happen, but it is an option.
One would think there would be a purpose behind it.
There would have to be a purpose behind it.
I've got a question. So this whole time, the church has made a ruckus over steeple height. Steeple height, God, that's important to God, even though it's random at all these other temples. Like sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher, but God really cares about this steeple's height.
God is kind of moody.
God hasn't said anything about the lights being on all night, has he?
No. And this is where the problem is for the church, I feel. And you see it too, Bill, and I'm sure you do too, RFM, because they can say, okay, fine, the steeple, whatever, but they can say absolute no on the lighting. If the church has to go in some kind of lawsuit or something about the lighting, I mean, they can't tell us why they need to be jacked to Jesus with the lighting nonstop, 24 hours a day, all year long.
How's the Mormon church going to light the world?
Well, there are pillar by day, cloud by day, pillar by night, Leahona. There are things that we don't have the doctrine
fire
of the
by
lighting
night. You
yet.
remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have the doctrine of the lighting yet.
You guys, there's an application that was already submitted for this temple that said the lights on all night is not important to us. We will leave the lights off.
Exactly.
So if they go tomorrow night and say, look, you guys, we agreed on the temple height, you can have that. But you got to have the lights off from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I can't imagine, again, you would have the church doing two things. One is that they would already be on the record saying we don't need the lights on all night in this area. Number one. Number two is that we would have to make an argument halfway through the process that God cares about the lights on the whole time. When we didn't do that in multiple chances that we had before this moment, I think that would work against them. I think Fairview could stick it to them by approving whatever parts that need to be, with the exception of things that have to be changed. Sewer might be an important thing, for instance, and require that the lights be off from 11 to 5. And then I think you have this. Both sides are like, we both got one over on the other, and they both could live with it, and it would feel like a win to both sides.
Yep, I think that's absolutely correct, because, the lighting is what is going to be the most obtrusive feature forever going forward to the neighbors.
Rebecca, I think that's going to happen as well, but I will ask you, Rebecca, so how is the church's position diminished at all other than the name of the temple?
Well, and this is our concern. If we talk about that name change, they could say, look, we gave you one of the concessions. Now you give us the rest. So even at planning and zoning, I was sort of disheartened to see that that was one of the conditions, because it's so minor and really means nothing. And again, I think some people are still hoping maybe they'll just take it and go away, in which case it's already named Fairview. That means it's there. It's happening, right?
Yes. I would have rather had the temple next door called McKinney and say, yeah, look at the dumbass Mormons named their temple. However,
or the North
Bill,
Texas temple or something like that. So just anything can happen. But your point, Bill, to the fact that they've already said the lighting doesn't matter, it's going to, or that they are willing to, turn it down. It's going to force them to say things out loud, like, you know what, we just want it and we can get it. It's going to force them to say that in so many words. And I don't know if that's really going to fly. So this is going to be fascinating. And again, the Mormon Newscast will be covering this. It's on Mormon Discussions. It's on Mormonish. Go back and forth, pick your show. And it's going to start at 5:30 with pre-show, where we'll kind of go over some of this again to make sure everybody understands what's happening. And then at 6 p.m. Mountain Time is when it gets going. And if it's anything like last time, you will be riveted to the screen. I couldn't believe we had so many people viewing it, but it's absolutely fascinating. So
yeah, it actually looks like a horse race now.
It does look like a horse race. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should take bets. I don't know. So I made this bingo card just because we hear so many phrases. I don't know, those of you that can see better, if you want to read some of my little phrases here that we can look for at the meeting. And these are gleaned from all the many meetings that we've sat through when it comes to temple. Can you see any RFM? It's
I saw
so
the
light.
first one. That's why I was laughing. We just want to be a good neighbor.
Yep. Bingo. Or I was actually doing a drinking game of that last time. If you remember, every time somebody said that. And there is public comment, I should make clear, in this town council meeting. It'll be the very same thing. Public comment, blue shirt, green shirt, go on for several hours, and then debate and discussion among the town councils. So do you want to read a couple more of those? I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, I like Beacons of Gondor down there at the right second from the top.
RFM has added his own.
It's right there, Beacons of Gondor.
Anyway, I'll put this bingo card on. Some of the things are like, draw your eyes upward, where heaven and earth meet, right? That kind of thing. Our kids can't drive in the traffic. These are all the things that we hear over and over and over at these town council meetings. So, all right, I just want to end with one thing. And Bill alluded to this before. What have the top leaders in the church, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you this was a video, Bill. I forgot that I had this. This is Kulch's video. So I'll talk for a minute while you get this together. And I had sent him, if I recall, I had sent him Elder Bednar and President Nelson, both talking about the temple and what's really important. And Kulch, he's so awesome. Hi, Kulch, in the chat. He was able to put these together. We just can't hear these enough, because this is the prophet and the prophet in waiting. Yes. And this is what they're saying about temples.
I'm interested in hearing the reptilian version of this issue. Their position is.
Yep.
I hear people say, oh, that's a small temple. There's no such thing as a small temple. They're just temples. There's no such thing as small covenants or small ordinances. And see, that to me reflects this fixation on it's the building. Who cares what the size is if you have access to the same covenants and ordinances whereby we have a covenant connection with the Father and the Son?
We're so blessed to have temples. We'll have increasing numbers of temples as the church grows. But it's not the number, and it's not the location, and it's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside.
Who cares what the size is? Who cares?
It's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside. It's the ordinances inside.
It's the ordinances inside.
Yep. So thank you, Coach, because none of us could say it any clearer. All of us growing up, we never heard that a large temple or a tall steeple or lighting had anything to do with what we were going to experience or what we did experience in the temple. So thank you.
Is there a reason? I'm sorry. Is there a reason no one played that last week, or any reason why someone can't play it tomorrow night?
Oh, they quote it all the time, and all the residents have it, and people mention it in
I'd have
their
a big screen
speeches.
TV, and I would play it on a 105-inch television at the front of the room.
They've got to be wired for sound there.
If any residents from Fairview are watching, or anyone on the town council, I can shoot you over a copy of that video if you think it would be useful.
Set the tone.
Yep,
oh yeah, stick it to them and show them that they're lying their asses off.
All right, so that's our Fairview update, and please, everybody, tune in tomorrow night at 5:30 for pre-show. I call it pre-show, and 6 p.m. Mountain Time for the meeting. I mean, this is really going to be it. This is the point where we're going to find out, can they arrive at something, or will there more likely, be a loss? What is going to happen? So this is going to be big.
The Thrilla in Manila.